everybody. It's the Prehospital Paradigm Podcast. I'm Scott Wildenheim. Got Caleb Ferroni and Ray Pace and Dr. John Hill with us yet again. Special 5-part series for all of 24. So what we're doing is we're doing a ongoing sub-series on EMS airway management. All right, so stay tuned for this installment of EMS Airways. The entry into the iGel was... It's grandparent, however you want to look at it, right? Yes. The progression here was from where'd our syringe go? We're just making a mess on this table now. This looks like every typical EMS scene. We're making a mess, right? So this is a laryngeal mask airway, or LMA. Same conceptual placement, same conceptual usage here. When I went to paramedic school, right, this damn thing cost me so many innovation opportunities in the OR for the exact same reasons you were talking about earlier, right?
During my training in iGel, did the same thing.
Same thing, right? You were an iGel, mine was an LMA, and why? Because surgeons, short procedures, low risk procedures. Yep. We know they had empty bellies.
Really hard to knock out teeth with plastics.
Really hard to knock out teeth when you're not doing laryngoscopy. So, of course, again, I lost a few tubes to LMAs, but exactly the same introduction, right? You're just going to follow the back of the oral pharynx down. You get that down and seated. I don't want to speak to the volumes because the volumes are manufacturer dependent, and there's different volumes that each of the devices would use, but nevertheless,
it's a small one.
Yep.
So not great.
No. But its name speaks for itself. Laryngeal mask airway.
So, your department still may elect to have these, right? If you're purchasing your own equipment, guess what? You can do very, very similar to that at probably a third the cost. Yep. So, it might be and you're not shorting your patient anything. You have to do one more thing. You got to bring that cuff up. But
it works.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, another tool. It might just be local preference, right? Uh-huh. We've always done it this way. They also have pediatric sizes. They've got all these as well.
Same thing for the Kings as these. Not ideal to place any medications down the tube. It's probably going to not get past the vocal cord, so that's going to be for ET tubes only. Yep. And then very rare at that you're not going to be able to get access on a patient, right?
Yep.
But we'll talk about that in our upcoming IV Access podcast.
Absolutely.
So same thing for the LMAs and the iGels. Bougie, please.
Bougie.
These can be exchanged as well using a bougie. So, and that's what we will do. After, again, if this is in place, I'm going to leave it in place. And the last thing I'm going to do, and likely before I transfer them out of my shop at least, or before they go to the ICU, we'll place the ET tube in and we'll exchange it over bougie and then visually verify it's in the right spot.
I think one of the most important thing about any of these BIADs is that don't let the first time you use it be on a patient. Practice, know the steps.
Yeah, and I think, like we talked about off camera too, is when you want to practice with all of these items, let's just specifically the King and the LMA, you have to use the lubricant, especially on any type of a mannequin. Yeah. Plastic on plastic does not work. So I think a lot of people get a poor impression of, well, this won't go down. It doesn't work, or it's a bad product. Not necessarily true. You have friction of plastic on plastic, so you have to lubricate it. And before you try to insert it, obviously on a real human being where there's saliva, mucus, all those other types of things, it's going to slide a lot easier. But the LMA does kind of work out really well. I think from the King and the LMA standpoint, we typically utilize the package to try to put all of the lubricant on it. So
yeah, and the literature comes everywhere. With it. We'll even say
you try.
Squirt it on the sheet next to the patient's head.
Lathered up.
Blood is an amazing lube.
Blood does work very good.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, the literature that'll come with iGel, and when you get your training on it, also shows that you use the top of the tray there for the lubricant tray, and you'll dip the 3 sides and then make your attempt.